Man, I just love it when I have all these people in my life telling me how to do what I'm supposed to be doing, telling me I need to do more, telling me when I'm doing the stuff wrong, and giving me pointers on how to do it correctly. Oh, it's such a weight lifted off my soul. Hi, I'm John Scheringer. Welcome to my channel, geared to give you focus, clarity, and inspiration in your daily life. And what I'd like to do in today's video is understand the needs and basics of holding oneself accountable. And basically what we're getting at is either you're going to hold yourself accountable or somebody else will. You know, it's easy to have somebody else hold you accountable, especially in a job or in your career. You have all these different supervisors or managers, leadership teams, and your coworker next to you that is more than happy to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. But that's the thing. We have somebody else holding us accountable. And what this video is going to be geared towards is helping you hold yourself accountable so nobody else is going to. And that's the beauty of living a life and creating a better future, is holding yourself accountable and being responsible for some of the actions that you've been doing. I know the first time that I held myself accountable, that I was responsible for the actions that I did, this was back when I got out of the Marine Corps and came back home. I was trying to find my way. I was trying to find my tribe, my group of friends, my scene, whatever you wanted to call it. I felt alone. I felt lonely. So I tried everything I could to fit in somewhere. I ended up doing that. I ended up finding a great group of people. Eventually, two of these friends and I decided to move in together. And the night that we decided to do that, we went out and celebrated. I packed my car with all my things, which fit in a 2-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot box, stuffed that in the trunk of my car and parked that right outside the house that we were going to move into. Super excited. We went out drinking with a group of friends. We had a beautiful time. It was a great night out. Eventually started to rain, but we went bar hopping. We had a bunch of drinks, danced to the music, played games, laughed. It was an amazing night. After the bars closed, we went back to the house and started having an after party at the house. I thought this was going to be a great start to my future. Well, little did I know that my two friends and I were going to start getting into an altercation. We started arguing with each other, and for the life of me, I can't remember what that was, but that's not the point. The point is that night after we argued, I got kicked out of the house. Nowhere to go, no idea what to do next. I did the only thing that I could think of. And in my intoxicated state, I jumped into my car and drove away. Now, if that wasn't the only problem that I did, is I was highly emotional, highly intoxicated. It was raining out, and I was driving in a location that I had no clue where I was. So all those negatives stacked against me, I bet you can guess where this is going. I ended up driving down a road that I had no clue where I was going, driving way too fast. At the last second, I found out that the road curved and I cut my wheel to be able to make that curve. Well, I didn't make it. I ended up hitting the curb, spilling the car over to the side. The car slid for a good 20 yards, with me still inside of it, luckily. As soon as I jumped out of that car, I tried to push the car over to make sure or make it seem like I didn't do anything wrong. Me in my intoxicated state, right? Well, as soon as I figured out that I couldn't push that car over, I turned around and saw this semicircle of people around me, trying to figure out what happened, if I'm okay, and hopefully nobody got hurt. Well, as I looked at this group of people behind me, I looked beyond them and I saw the red and blue lights. I heard the sirens come towards me, and I could only think of doing one thing, and that's sit down on that curb and wait for the impending arrest to happen. Now, I could have done a bunch of different things. As soon as I jumped out of that car, I could have ran away. I could have called the cops the next day and blamed that my car got stolen and somebody else crashed it. I could, even after getting arrested, blame that car crash on the alcohol. Blamed it on my friends that I had an argument with. Or blamed it on the group of friends that I went out drinking with. I could have used all the excuses, but I didn't. Even in my intoxicated state, I had a higher pride for myself. I held myself accountable and responsible for what I just did. And even though it wasn't a sexy part of my life, even though it was a hard part of my life, holding yourself accountable is difficult, especially when you're doing it to yourself. It's a little bit easier when somebody else is holding you accountable, but when you're doing it to yourself, it's a lot more difficult because you have a little bit more wiggle room mentally to be able to get beyond this, and maybe next time I'll hold myself accountable. Well, this night I didn't. This night I held myself accountable, and that was the first start of me building up into the life that I have now and the pride that I have now in my life and what I've created. And that's exactly what I'd love to help you with. And the way that we're going to do that with this video is we're going to do it in 3 different parts. Hey, how you doing? John here. I want to take this minute to remind you to like this video, make sure that you follow me, you subscribe, you click that bell for notifications for videos in the future, and please make sure you share this with your loved ones. All right, back to the show. The first part is we're going to agree on the responsibilities that we are going to undertake. The second part, which is the moneymaker, that's really holding ourselves accountable through the good and the bad. And then the third part, well, we need to measure how successful we are. And that's what we're going to figure out in doing. So kicking this off, getting this started, what we need to do first off is to recognize and acknowledge your responsibilities. Now you might be thinking, John, what the hell does that mean? Basically what that means is you need to figure out what your dreams are and establish those as goals. So all the goals that you have in your life, how are you going to accomplish them? What is it going to take for you to make sure those goals come to fruition? You need to understand what your why is and what's your driving force into making these dreams a reality. Now, we're not going to get into how to establish goals. That's going to be in a future video, so please stay tuned. I'm just going to cover the 30,000 foot view as it is to understand how to make sure that we step ourselves out on the right foot. So we're going to establish goals, whatever they may be, and make sure that we hit those goals. And we need to agree on those goals. And yes, we're the ones writing them down, and hopefully it's on a sheet of paper, or maybe you want to use an Excel file. Maybe you like using an app on your phone to be able to track what your goals are so they can hit them. Either way, you need to be able to agree and recognize what those responsibilities are. Otherwise, you can't hold yourself accountable and responsible. So if you don't have that written down first off, I suggest you do that. That's the first thing you need to do before you do anything else. The second thing we want to do is be responsible for the outcomes, good or bad. Now, I said it earlier, and it alludes to my story, my drunk driving story. And yes, I did get ticketed. That was my first drunk driving. I'm not glorifying it, it happened. But it was a negative that I turned into a positive to help make my life better, make a better future for myself. So we need to agree, but then we need to hold ourselves accountable. And any of you that's been in any office job or any corporate situation, I'm sure you've all heard of SMART goals, right? Mainly because you do personal development or you have your boss telling you to create these goals to help them help you grow in your career. Well, with any good SMART goal, you have time built into that goal. You know and understand when that goal should be accomplished. Well, that right there, my friends, that is where you're going to hold yourself accountable. That timestamp. So even if it's a week in the future, a month, a year, 10 years, that date cannot waver, cannot change. You need to be able to hold yourself accountable to doing that. And a great way to do that, even if you're building a stretch goal or you have an overarching goal that seems beyond your reach, a great objective or a great tip that I like to do when creating these goals is create them in the mindset of a step ladder. You have all these rungs that you can make smaller goals to help build up to reach the bigger goal. So if the bigger goal is on the top, you have all these rungs of the ladder going out to the very bottom. And each rung of the ladder has a separate goal to be able to build up, to be able to reach that overarching goal that you want to accomplish. So that's the first thing that you want to do when you start creating your goals, when you start becoming responsible and accountable for what you want to accomplish. See, if you don't have that, if you don't have a timestamp or something to be able to look into, you have no clue when something's supposed to get done. So it's just going to wade in the wind, and whenever your happy ass feels like completing this goal, well, then you're going to get to it. But if you don't have anything holding you accountable, holding your feet to the fire, as it were, well, then you're not going to get it done. And you can hold yourself accountable through many different ways. You can use a sheet of paper. You can get a whiteboard. You can have a loose leaf notebook, Microsoft Excel, any computer application out there. You can use apps on your phone that you can track and be able to put in your separate goals and how you're going to reach them. Either way, you, again, first things first, need to be able to acknowledge what responsibilities you're going to hold yourself accountable for. And then the second step is to be able to hold yourself accountable. And that time stamp is a very good way to do that. There's other ways, but we're just going to give you one right now. One good tip right now is using that time stamp of those SMART goals to be able to use that to hold yourself accountable. Then once you're able to accept and acknowledge those responsibilities, once you've been holding yourself accountable, well, here comes part 3. You need to measure, use some metrics, measure your success. How good have you been doing holding yourself accountable? Maybe you think you've been doing great, but when you actually write it down on a sheet of paper, you've been doing shitty. You won't know until you measure your success. And that could look in various different ways. But in our scenario here, if we're using that timestamp, right? If we're using that time of, in 1 year, I want to accomplish X goal, well, then that's going to be your goal that you need to hit. So that means every month, every week, every day, you need to be able to accomplish something to be able to get that rungs up the ladder. Or if you like a snowball analogy, that snowball rolling downhill. The more you accomplish, the more wins you get stacked up underneath your belt that will make that snowball get bigger and bigger the further it gets downhill. It's gonna gain momentum, right? Once it goes downhill, it'll gain momentum. And the more you start accomplishing those goals, the easier it's going to be to accomplish your overarching goal and create a better future for yourself. And that's the cool thing about holding yourself accountable. Again, I know it's not sexy, but if you don't do this little thing here, holding yourself accountable, you're not going to be able to create the future that you want. You're not going to be able to achieve your dreams. And to be able to do all of that, holding yourself accountable, that means you're grabbing the power, right? The power is coming into you and you're not giving somebody else the power. See, for my drunk driving, if I would have blamed that on my friends that I had the argument with, I would have given them the power of the situation that I had in my life, which means that they're going to be the ones that dictate what happens in my life. I won't be able to move on until they make it so, or until I take that power back. So for you in your life, accountability is powerful, absolutely powerful. It helps you mold your life into what you want it to be instead of somebody else telling you what you should be living like. Instead of being at your job and having all your supervisors and managers telling you, no, you should be doing this instead of that. Well, if you're already holding yourself accountable, you're not going to need their input. You're going to be able to do that stuff on your own, and you're going to climb up the corporate ladder faster than you ever thought possible. And in your personal life, which is what we're trying to build right here, you're going to build your best life faster than you ever thought possible. You're going to have more freedom, more time into your life because you took the power back and you're holding yourself accountable and responsible for what you want in your life. Basically, accountability is doing what you say and saying what you do. Without it, you're going to lose all the trust. You're going to lose the credibility. You're going to have zero integrity. And once your friends find out that they can't trust you, that you have no credibility, that you have zero integrity within yourself, no one's going to want to be around you. No one's going to want to tell you stuff. No one's going to want to be with you. Until, again, you bring that power back into yourself. Until you show people that you can be trustworthy, that you have integrity, that you are able to do what you say and say what you do, well then, my friends, again, you're going to bring that dream, those goals into your life a lot quicker than you ever thought possible. And this all stems around the fact of creating your best life possible. So the more you want that, then the more you're going to have to hold yourself accountable. If you find yourself getting stuck, if you find yourself not being able to hold yourself accountable, or not really caring when you lose that trust in yourself and in other people, or you find out that your credibility is shot with your friends, well, then that usually means that that goal that you have isn't inspiring. It's not the goal that you really want. So you either need to sit down and take a real close, hard look at yourself and figure out if that's truly what you want or if there's something else that you want. Or it could be just that you're weak.